his military to be on alert against aggressive statements from NATO countries. What does that mean? Let's talk more about it with our senior investigative reporter, Aaron Katersky in Ukraine, along with senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer with us here in the nation's capital. Aaron, we're seeing new satellite images now of a large convoy of Russian forces actually moving toward Kyiv. What's the latest? What can you tell us?
That convoy is more than 3 miles long, Kira, and it contains tanks and armored personnel carriers, all sorts of equipment, fuel, just the kind of resupply that Western defense officials said today would be needed for Russia to continue with a more successful assault on the Ukrainian capital. The assault had been slowed, it's believed, by two things: the ferocity of the Ukrainian defenses, but also because of the logistics problems that the Russians seem to have suffered not only in Kyiv but also in Kharkiv, the second largest city in the east, where the Ukrainian military fought a street battle for control of the city. They maintain control. The Russians have not been able to control any Ukrainian city at this point. But Western officials said today, Kira, that they know the Russians have plenty of fight left in them. They've only deployed 2/3 of the available combat power they had, so that's another third that they can bring to bear here. And in a candid moment that he's now trying to walk back, the mayor of Kyiv said that the Russians still have the city pretty much surrounded. He said he was taken out of context, but it is a glaring reminder of what could happen here in the coming hours. We've hit nightfall once again, and another unsettling night ahead.
Which we will follow, of course, Aaron, with you through the night. And Devin, the UN Security Council has now voted to convene a special session of the UN General Assembly to debate this invasion of Ukraine. What could come of that?
Yeah, Kira, remember the UN Security Council, 15 members, the United States, one of the permanent members. That's the power hub of the United Nations. And they voted just a short time ago to convene a gathering of the much larger body of the UN, the General Assembly, all 193 members, basically every country in the world, to debate this. This is an indication of the Biden administration trying to leverage the entire world against Russia to, isolate them completely in the global community. And the fact that this has passed now 11-1, Russia voting against it. They will convene this assembly. It's only the 11th time since 1950 that the entire UN General Assembly has come together. So, yes, they'll debate the war. Each country will get a chance to go on record where it stands on the war in Ukraine. Certainly, some might say, well, this is just a bunch of words, a lot of diplomatic speak. To hear from these diplomats talking about what's going on, yes, that's true. There's not a lot of bite that will come from this, but make no mistake, this is yet another indication of just how isolated Russia is in this action. And the Biden administration just a few moments ago saying that this is a very significant development that they hope will add yet another layer of pressure on Vladimir Putin.
Well, and Aaron, Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, gave a pretty pessimistic assessment of negotiations with Russia now. Tell us more of what he had to say today.
Well, those negotiations so far have been kind of done under duress. The Russians said that they wanted a full capitulation. They said, oh, we'd love to talk as long as you promise never to join NATO and meet our other demands. We're not sure whether the Russians have truly backpedaled from that. Initially, the Russians wanted to meet in Minsk, and Zelensky didn't see that as neutral ground because he said Belarus had staged Russian troops and missiles to attack this country. But late today, he did agree to send a delegation to the border, the Ukraine-Belarus border, where he thinks they can hash out something. But he is still pessimistic that there's a diplomatic solution ahead. We don't know whether he feels this is just a stall tactic by the Russians while they resupply and try to reconstitute their forces, or whether he just doesn't think that Vladimir Putin is serious when he is putting his nuclear assets on higher alert.
So, Devin, Canada and the EU have closed their airspace to Russian flights. We mentioned that at the top of this newscast. Let's talk about the kind of impact that could have and what we're seeing now.
Yeah, the Western allies, Kira, not only have cut Russia off now from the banking system, but they're cutting them off from the international travel system, as you say. In fact, the U.S. Embassy in Moscow just a few moments ago put out a warning to any American citizens in that country to get out of Russia as well, because pretty soon they won't be able to take commercial flights out of Russia back to the United States. Not only are these airspace bans in the EU and Canada for takeoffs and landings, but you can't fly over those countries either. In fact, we've been tracking a flight on Russian Airlines, flight 124. It's a regularly scheduled Aeroflot service from Moscow to JFK. It appears, according to Flight Radar, that it has turned back mid-flight back to Moscow, presumably because they couldn't fly over European or Canadian airspace, which was closed as they were making their way to JFK. So significant disruption for those passengers and for other Russians, and yet another sign, as we've been saying, of just how this administration is trying to isolate Russia. Although I should say, Kira, that the FAA says there has, as of now, been no change to U.S. airspace when it comes to Russian planes.
All right, we'll track it. Devin Dwyer, Aaron Katersky, thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News